It started with a single ping on my phone at 11:12 a.m. Just one message from a number I didn't recognize. Words I wasn't supposed to see. That moment split my life clean in half. Before it, I was a husband, a father, a man who thought love was something you could build steady with time. After it, I was someone else, someone who measured every silence, every glance, every lie hiding behind a smile. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her. I did what I know best. I watched, I waited, I built proof. People say betrayal comes fast, like a blade. They're wrong. It's slower, quiet, patient, until one day you realize it's been carving you from the inside out. This is the story of how I found out who my wife really was, and what I became when I finally stopped pretending I didn't know. I was sanding a cedar canoe when my phone pinged. The screen showed 11:12 a.m. and a preview from an unknown number. Can't stop thinking. Then it cut off. Not a donor. Not her mother. Not anyone I knew. I put the phone face down and went back to the sander. Straight lines, steady pressure, simple rules. If I kept my hands moving, I could delay the part where thoughts stack up and tip over. The shop smelled like sawdust and cold air sneaking in through the bay door. I told myself it had to be work. Sabrina is a curator. People send her half messages all the time. Still, I flipped the phone twice in 10 minutes. Same preview, no new text. I breathed, ran the sander along the hull, checked for a ridge only I would feel. By late afternoon, the canoe looked ready for varnish, and I was out of reasons to stay. I washed my hands and watched the water run brown, then clear. The message was still there, hanging like a hook, with no bait. I didn't open it. Not yet. Dusk turned the river to slate as I drove home. Our street looked like a postcard. When I pulled into our driveway, everything looked normal, too normal, the kind of neat you get when a room wants to be inspected. Sabrina opened the door before I reached the steps. She was in a blue sweater I liked, hair up, face soft. She kissed my cheek and handed me a mug. "You look tired, hon." I watched her for 3 heartbeats. "Yeah, long day." "Mine too," she said. "The Mariners donors want a bigger title card." I smiled because that's the right answer. We moved around each other in the kitchen like people who've practiced. I chopped carrots. She stirred soup. She smelled like winter air and something unfamiliar, citrus and metal. New scent. Not mine. Over dinner we kept it light. She said the sculptor whispered to the glass as he worked. I said a customer tried to haggle with a blog post from 2013. We laughed just enough. The message on my phone kept pulsing behind everything we said. After, she leaned her hip against the counter and watched me rinse the bowls. "You're quiet tonight," she said. "I'm thinking about the trim on that canoe." "Always the trim with you." She touched my arm. Warm, easy, familiar. It should have settled me. It didn't. We moved to the couch. She tucked her feet under my leg like she always does in winter. We scrolled through our phones the way couples do when they want closeness without weight. I asked to see photos from the install. She showed me. Steel and glass, a line of visitors, her reflection in a panel. Focused, serious, beautiful in a way that's easy to share and hard to hold. "Shower," she said, standing with a small stretch that lifted her sweater just enough to show skin. It wasn't a show, it was automatic. Still, my body noticed. I watched her walk down the hall and told myself not to be stupid. She doesn't usually shower at night. That detail sat in my mind like a thumbtack. I heard the water hit tile, then go steady. The smell of her shampoo drifted back, clean and floral. I looked at my phone, opened the message, and read the rest. "Can't stop thinking about last night. You were bold. D." I stared at the single letter. D. Damon is the museum's operations director. He laughs too loudly at board meetings. He also wears a cologne with a bitter citrus bite. I'd noticed it once, leaving the museum elevator. I didn't type back. I took a picture of the screen and saved it. Then I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling until I remembered to breathe. The water stopped. Footsteps. The door opened. Sabrina came back in my old regatta t-shirt, hair damp at the ends. She slid under the blanket and put her cold feet against my calf. "Don't move," she said. "You're a radiator." I didn't move. I ran my hand along her back just once, small and slow, and let it rest at the curve above her hip. She relaxed, the way she always has when I touch her there. My chest tightened with a mix of anger and wanting that I didn't know where to place. I could have asked for sex. I didn't. I wasn't sure whether I wanted connection or proof. She looked up at me. "Hi," she whispered like it was a secret. "Hi." Her eyes searched my face. "You really okay?" "Long day," I said again. The words felt thin. We turned off the TV and tried to sleep. The house settled around us, a small groan in the radiators, a plow grinding past outside. Her breathing evened out fast, as if she could slip into peace with a switch. I lay awake and listened. My mind went to simple instructions. Don't explode. Don't accuse. Prove it first. My father's voice, from when I learned to bend wood. The river tells you what's true if you stop fighting it. I would need a calm hand. Evidence, not guesses. If there was nothing to find, I'd be the only one who knew I'd looked. If there was something, I'd know how to act. Beside me, Sabrina rolled closer until her knee brushed my thigh. It stirred a memory. Our first summer, her in a sundress, the heat in my shop, the two of us moving from flirtation to certainty. The first time she pressed me against a workbench and said, plain as a vow, "Don't be careful." We learned each other's pace then, how to carry heat without burning. The memory didn't hurt. That was the worst part. It still felt alive. I stared into the dark and counted breaths. Somewhere between 30 and 40, I admitted what I'd been avoiding. I was afraid, not of losing her, of learning exactly who she'd chosen to be when I wasn't looking. The ping had opened a door I couldn't close. At 1:03 a.m., I finally slept. I dreamed of the canoe, smooth, ready, bright under the shop lights. I woke just before dawn with my hand still at the curve of her back, like I'd been guarding a border all night. Snow kept falling. The day ahead felt like a river at flood, cold, fast and honest. I'd go to work. I would keep my hand steady, and I would start paying attention to everything she wanted me to ignore. The morning after the message, I went to the shop early and worked like I was being watched. I unlocked the bay door, switched on the lights, and let the heat lamps take the sting out of the air. Work is simple. Measure, mark, cut, check. Marriage had been simple too until it wasn't. I repeated 3 rules. Don't explode. Don't accuse. Prove it first. Saying them out loud helped. By 9, I'd sanded every line I could justify, and my mind went back to 11:12 a.m. like a dog to a dropped crumb. At lunch, I drove home to grab a drill bit I'd forgotten. The driveway was empty. Inside, the house had that quiet you get when a room has just exhaled. I did a slow walk-through, eyes open, hands off. Bedroom, tidy. Laundry, folded. Bathroom, damp towel hung flat like an alibi. I didn't check her phone or drawers. If I was going to look, I wanted to be able to live with how I'd done it. Back at the shop, Mr. Alvarez from next door waved me over to his fence. "You've had company," he said. "Same dark sedan by your mailbox yesterday. Nice car." "Yeah," I said, aiming for harmless. "Nice." When I went back inside, I wrote a note on the back of a receipt. Dark sedan. Not a verdict, a detail. That week, I started tracking. Nothing dramatic, just 4 columns in a notebook. Date, time, location, note. Monday, late meeting, home 9:40, shower. Tuesday, girls' drinks, home 11:15, no shower, new perfume. Wednesday, board prep, home 8:05, long call in the car before coming inside. The numbers stayed calm. I didn't. At night, Sabrina and I still touched. She curled into my side and placed a hand low on my stomach. My body answered before my head caught up. Sometimes she'd kiss my shoulder and make that small sound that used to be ours alone. The heat between us was still there, and that made everything worse. Desire made me hopeful. Hope made me reckless. Recklessness was exactly what I couldn't afford. On Thursday, she came home bright from a cold, set a bottle of wine on the counter, and leaned on her elbows. "We should go to the wharf on Friday," she said. "New piece going up, woven steel. You'll like the engineering." My mouth said yes. My gut starred the entry. Damon oversaw installations. Friday meant proximity. I told myself not to turn everything into a shape that fit my fear. Still, I wrote it down. Friday, wharf. We ate, we kissed, we undressed. Not fireworks, familiar heat that unfolded, because we let it. I studied her in the dark the way I check a hull, gently, for signs. She arched into my hand and whispered my name. When she came apart, she held my wrist and hid her face in my throat. For a minute, I believed that wanting could clean a stain. After, she traced a circle on my chest. You're far away lately, she said. I'm here, I said. True, and not enough. Friday, I closed the shop early and drove to the wharf. From the lot, you can see the museum's glass lobby reflected off the water. Inside, staff in black moved a crate. Someone wheeled a ladder. I went in like a visitor and took the long way around, pretending to read wall text while keeping the glass in my peripheral vision. I saw Sabrina first, laughing with someone blocked by a column. When she shifted, I had him too. Damon, tie loosen half an inch. They stood close in the way people do when they've shared something they don't name. She adjusted his tie. He didn't step back. I felt nothing, then everything. Without moving, I snapped a photo of their reflection in a mirrored panel. Warped or not, it was them. It was enough for me. I didn't confront her. I walked the far side of the gallery and left through the side door like a man practicing restraint. My hand shook only after I reached the truck. That night she came home smelling faintly of wine and varnish. Long day, she said, and kissed me, careful but not guilty. We ate, watched a show about frantic chefs, and went to bed. She fell asleep in 10 minutes. I stayed awake an hour, then 2. At 3 I got up, went to the workshop, and stood with the canoe in the silver light. The hull looked patient, waiting for a decision. Saturday morning, she noticed the circles under my eyes. What's wrong? Deadlines, I said. We both heard the thinness. She let it go. I loved her for it. I hated that I loved her for it. By Sunday, my notebook had 3 pages of neat, boring entries. I added a 5th column, source. If I saw it, I wrote I. If I heard it from someone else, I wrote N for neighbor or W for work. It made me feel like a decent man inside a bad movie. In the afternoon, we walked the river path. Families dragged sleds. Runners did that winter shuffle that looks like a negotiation. She slipped her gloved hand into mine. You're not funny lately, she said. I'll invoice you for jokes, I said. She bumped my hip. The contact shot straight through me. I wanted to ask hard questions. I wanted to earn soft answers. Neither felt possible without ruining the day. That night, while she showered, I stood in the bedroom and looked at the vent near the baseboard. The angle faced the hallway, a clean line of sight. I thought about the names I give file folders, the way I label clamps so I can find them in the dark. I thought about lines and truth, and how much of a person you lose the first time you spy on them. The water shut off. I moved away from the vent and sat on the edge of the bed, breathing through the decision I knew I was walking toward. I didn't have to like it, only be sure. The house went quiet again, that held breath quiet. I looked at the wall, then at my hands, and told myself one last time to be certain before I crossed a line I couldn't uncross. By Friday morning, I'd already memorized the sound of her heels, the sharp rhythm down the hallway, the pause near the mirror, the soft tap-tap before the door closed. That day, they came earlier than usual. She moved like someone who had planned her outfit last night. Sabrina leaned in to kiss me goodbye. Her lips were warm, her voice casual. Wish me luck. Big installation day. I smiled because it was easier than asking. Good luck. After she left, I stood by the window, watching her taillights fade into the street's gray morning. For a few seconds, I almost convinced myself to let it go, to burn the notebook, delete the photo, call it paranoia. But trust, once cracked, doesn't hold water. It leaks into everything. I stayed at the shop, forcing focus on the canoe. Every pass of sandpaper felt like a heartbeat I couldn't calm. By noon, I gave up pretending. I locked the door, wiped my hands, and drove toward the waterfront. The museum sat near the edge of the harbor, a mix of old brick and new glass. The sky was the color of tin, gulls slicing through the air like they knew something. I parked far enough away not to be noticed, and walked along the dock until the main doors came into view. Inside, the lobby smelled of polish and salt. A new exhibit was opening. Steel sculptures wrapped in glass, wires braided into strange, fragile shapes. The kind of art Sabrina loved, order built out of chaos. I spotted her near the installation, clipboard in hand, hair tied back. She looked radiant, focused, real. Damon stood beside her, wearing his usual gray suit and that practiced half-smile. They spoke quietly. She reached up to straighten his tie, an automatic, intimate gesture. He didn't move away. My stomach went still. I turned my phone just enough to catch their reflection in one of the glass panels. The warped image made them look ghost-like, but close. Her fingers brushed the knot of his tie. He said something that made her laugh softly. I took one photo. Just one. The truth doesn't need more pixels than that. I stepped back before anyone noticed, circling toward the exit. The wind outside hit hard, sharp with salt. My pulse was a clean drumbeat in my ears. I sat in the truck for a while, the photo open on my phone. Their faces were distorted in the reflection, but I could tell. It wasn't the kind of distance coworkers share. It was the kind that used to live between us. For a long minute, I didn't move. Then I turned the key and drove home. When she came through the door that evening, her cheeks were pink from the cold, eyes bright, the same easy smile. "You would have loved the new piece," she said. "It's called The Weight of Transparency." I almost laughed at the title. How fitting. She looked at me, maybe curious about my tone, but didn't press. "Long day," she sighed, kicking off her boots. "Yeah," I said. "Long day." She poured herself wine and leaned against the counter, watching me stir the pot on the stove. "You're quiet again." "Thinking about finishing the canoe this weekend." "You and that canoe," she said with a small smile, walking up behind me. Her arms slid around my waist. Her chin rested between my shoulders. For a second, I froze. Then I let her hold me, feeling her warmth through the fabric of my shirt. "Evan," she murmured, "you're miles away lately." I wanted to tell her I wasn't the one who left. I wanted to ask who she was when I wasn't around. But instead, I turned off the burner, took her wrist gently, and faced her. "Just tired," I said. Her eyes searched mine, maybe looking for something that wasn't there anymore. "You sure?" "Yeah." We ate, pretending to be the couple we used to be. The conversation skimmed the surface, about the exhibit, about a board member's tantrum, about Leo's science fair next month. Every word felt rehearsed. Later that night, she reached for me in bed. It wasn't a demand, more a question. I kissed her because I still knew how. Her breath hitched. Her fingers tightened around mine. The room filled with the sound of us, familiar, mechanical, intimate, sad. It was the same rhythm we'd learned years ago, but the heartbeat underneath it had changed. When it was over, she rested her head on my chest. "See? We're fine," she whispered. I stared at the ceiling. "Yeah," I said. "We're fine." She fell asleep quickly, breathing steady, the same peace I couldn't touch. I reached for my phone on the nightstand and opened the gallery. The photo glowed in the dark, her or him, a moment of quiet betrayal captured in glass. I zoomed in until the pixels blurred. Then I put the phone face down and lay there, wide awake. Outside, snow drifted against the window. Somewhere under all that silence, something inside me began to harden. Not anger exactly, just resolve. By dawn, I knew what I needed to do. Not yet. Not tonight. But soon. I'd prove it. I'd make it undeniable. And when I did, there'd be no pretending left for either of us. The next morning came gray and still, the kind of cold that makes every breath sound louder. I couldn't stay in the house. The air felt wrong there. Too clean, too carefully ordinary. Sabrina slept through the alarm, one arm thrown across the empty side of the bed. I left before she woke, taking the rowboat down to the river behind the shop. Frost clung to the oars. My breath came out in pale ribbons. I rowed without thinking, muscles moving through memory. My father used to say the river tells you everything if you stop fighting it. Back then I thought he meant fishing, not life. Now I wasn't so sure. Each pull through the water steadied me. The motion stripped away the noise until only the question stayed. How long had it been going on? Was it still happening? What did she tell him about me? By the time the sun broke through the clouds, I wasn't angry anymore. Just cold. Calm in a way that scared me a little. When I got back to the dock, I sat there with the oars across my knees. I'd seen the truth. A reflection, a touch, a message that wasn't meant for me. It was enough. But the part of me that builds things careful, exact, patient, wanted proof the same way I'd want a level edge on a hull. Not for revenge. For clarity. I opened my phone and stared at the photo again. It didn't hurt anymore. It felt like a map, a design waiting to be traced. At the shop, I started a new folder on my computer. I didn't call it Sabrina or Affair. I named it Hull Repairs. Inside it, I added subfolders: inspection, seams, recordings. I told myself it was about control, not obsession. A man needs a plan to stay steady. That afternoon, I walked to the small cafe near the museum. From the window, I could see the parking lot across the street. Damon's car, a dark sedan, was there. I took a picture of a plate, time-stamped it. Then I waited until Sabrina's car pulled in 20 minutes later. Another photo. 2 cars, same lot, same hour. When she got home that night, she told me about a donor dinner next week. "It's just bored people," she said, unbuttoning her coat. "Probably dull." I nodded. "Where?" "The Tide House Inn, Kennebunkport." I filed the name away. The Tide House. I'd heard of it, a quiet place for retreats, the kind that doesn't ask questions. She walked over and kissed me, light practiced. "You're still thinking about that canoe, aren't you?" "Always," I said. She smiled and went upstairs. I stood there listening to her steps fade, wondering if she knew I was cataloging every move she made. Over the next few days, the pattern grew clear. Her texts came later. Her calls got shorter. She laughed more at her phone than at me. Each change was small enough to excuse on its own. Together, they were a story. One night, she came into the workshop with 2 mugs of tea. "You'll wear yourself out," she said. "Just finishing up." She leaned against the workbench, watching me smooth the edge of the frame. "You know what I love about you," she said. I didn't answer right away. "What?" "You build things that last." She smiled, soft and sad, like she was already saying goodbye. When she left the shop, I set down the sandpaper and stared at the doorway for a long time. Later, I went through my notes again, dates, times, small details. My handwriting had turned tight and neat, like a blueprint. I wasn't sure what I was building anymore. A case? A defense? Maybe just a way to survive knowing. That night, I lay awake beside her. Her breathing was even, her hand resting lightly on my arm. I wanted to move it, to reclaim my space, but I didn't. Instead, I thought about how wood bends under heat, how a craftsman learns exactly how much pressure it takes before it breaks. By 2 a.m., I'd made a decision. Not tonight, but soon. There would be a camera, nothing fancy, just enough to tell the truth. I'd place it where I could see the hallway, maybe the front room. I'd angle it low, hidden but not impossible to find. I'd catch what needed catching. Until then, I'd wait. Work. Watch. When I finally closed my eyes, the river was still there behind them. Steady, cold, endless. My father was right. The river remembers everything. It just waits for you to be quiet enough to listen. Sunday mornings used to mean late pancakes, her hair messy, music playing low while we moved around each other in the kitchen. Now the silence had seams. We both felt them, but pretended not to. That week, I decided to talk to someone who knew her, before the polished tone, before the museum smiles and perfect posture. Someone who might still see the truth in her eyes the way I used to. So I called Marisol Vale, her mother. Marisol had always liked me, even when she pretended to keep her distance. She once told me, "You calm her storms." Back then, I thought it was a compliment. Now, maybe it was a warning. She answered on the second ring. "Evan, this is a surprise. I was wondering if you had time for brunch this week," I said. "Is everything all right with Sabrina?" A pause. "I just think we should talk." She must have heard something in my voice because she didn't hesitate. Dock Street Diner. Thursday 10. The diner sat across from the harbor, windows fogged with the warmth of breakfast rush. Marisol arrived in her usual beige coat, her hair streaked with gray now. When she saw me, she smiled, but not all the way. "I hope this isn't about Leo's school again," she said, sliding into the booth. "It's not." The waitress poured coffee. I waited until she left before saying, "It's about Sabrina." Marisol's fingers tightened on the mug. "You sound like a man about to break something." I took a breath. I found messages. From someone at her work. And a photo. Her expression didn't change much, but her shoulders sank. "I knew that look on her face last Christmas," she said quietly. "It's the same one she had at 20, when she thought secrets made her interesting." I slid my phone across the table. The photo was small, but enough. Marisol looked at it for a long moment, her thumb hovering like she might erase it just by wanting to. "I raised her better than this," she whispered. "People change," I said. "Or they just stop pretending," she replied. "Who's the man?" "Damon. She says they work together." Marisol let out a soft, bitter laugh. "He was at the museum gala, right? The one who quoted Rilke at the dinner table." "That's him." She shook her head. I should have known. Sabrina always wanted a man who sounded like a book she couldn't finish. I didn't know what to say, so I stirred my coffee and watched the spoon move. "What are you going to do, Evan?" she asked finally. "I don't know yet." She studied me. "You're calm." "Too calm." "I have to be," I said. "If I lose that, everything falls apart." Marisol looked out the window. Snow had started again, soft flakes landing on the glass. When her father cheated on me, I waited too long to confront him. I thought proof would make it easier. It didn't. It just made the truth sharper. I nodded slowly. "Still, I need to be sure." She reached across the table and touched my wrist. "Whatever you do, don't let her guilt make you small. You didn't cause this." The kindness in her voice almost broke me. I swallowed hard, took my phone back, and turned it face down. We finished our food mostly in silence. Before she left, Marisol put a hand on my shoulder. "You know," she said, "Sabrina always said you were the safest place she'd ever been. Maybe that's why she walked away. Some people don't know what to do with safety." Her words stayed with me long after she'd gone. That evening, Sabrina came home with tulips. "For you," she said, setting them on the counter. "You've been working too hard." I watched her unwrap the paper, her smile rehearsed but soft. "You saw your mother today?" I asked casually. She hesitated for half a second, barely enough to catch. "No, why?" "Just wondered." She turned back to the flowers. "She texted, but we haven't had time to meet." "Right." She moved closer and kissed me, light, almost cautious. "You okay?" "Yeah," I lied. That night, while she slept beside me, I wrote one sentence in my notebook. "Finish what you started." I didn't know what that meant yet, not exactly. But I felt the shape of it forming. Slow, deliberate, certain. The next step wasn't anger. It was precision. And by the time the sun came up, I knew I wasn't going to wait for the truth anymore. I was going to build it. Sabrina mentioned the board retreat, over dinner like it was an afterthought. She stirred her pasta, avoiding my eyes. "It's at the Tide House Inn," she said. "Just a weekend thing. Workshops, team building, all that." I nodded slowly. "Sounds nice." "It's mandatory," she added, a little too quickly. "I'll be back Sunday night." "Of course," I said. My voice sounded steady, almost bored. Inside, my pulse felt like it had learned to hammer wood. When she kissed me goodnight that Friday, she smelled like lavender soap and something faintly expensive. "Don't work too hard while I'm gone," she whispered. "I'll try not to," I said. I didn't sleep. I watched the clock pass every hour until dawn. Saturday morning, her suitcase sat by the door, neat and precise. She wore a cream sweater, black coat, lipstick the color of red wine, the kind she used to save for our anniversaries. She waved from the driveway as she backed out. I waved back, smiling, pretending. The snow on the lawn glowed under the gray light. The second her car turned the corner, I was already moving. 2 hours later, I stood at the counter of the Tide House Inn, signing the check-in card under the name R. Glass. The woman behind the desk didn't even glance up. "Room 207, she said. The Tide House was an old coastal inn, white siding, pale wood floors, every hallway humming softly with the sound of wind outside. Her car was in the lot. Damon's dark sedan was parked 3 spaces away. I didn't need directions. I already knew what I was going to find. Room 210. Her door. I heard laughter before I even knocked. His voice, lower, easy, familiar. Hers followed, lighter, like she was trying to match his tone. When I raised my hand to knock, for a second, I almost stopped. What if I was wrong? What if it was just work? Then the door opened. Sabrina stood there in a hotel robe, hair damp, eyes wide. Behind her, Damon froze halfway through pouring champagne into 2 glasses. For a few seconds, no one spoke. "Evan," she breathed. "What are you?" "I'm not here to shout," I said, my voice quieter than I expected. "I just need you both to see the end of what you started." Damon took a step forward. "Look, this isn't." "Don't," I said. The word came out sharp. He stopped. Sabrina's hands trembled at the tie of her robe. "Please, just let me explain." "You've been explaining for weeks," I said. "Now I just need you to listen." I lifted my phone. It wasn't shaking. I pressed record. "Evan, stop," she said, stepping closer, her voice breaking. "Please." I shook my head. "This isn't for revenge. It's just proof. So when people ask what happened, I don't have to lie anymore." Tears gathered in her eyes. Damon looked at the floor, the coward's refuge. I filmed for 10 seconds. Just enough. Then I lowered the phone. "That's all I needed," I said. "Evan." "I loved you," I said quietly. "I really did. I thought we were something solid." She reached out, her fingers brushing my sleeve, and for a moment I almost let her hold on. Then I stepped back. "I won't make a scene," I said. "You've already made it for me." And I left. Outside, the cold air hit me like a wall. Snow drifted down in small, silent flakes, landing on my jacket and melting fast. I walked across the parking lot, the crunch of ice under my boots louder than anything else in the world. At my truck, I looked back once. Through the window, I could still see her standing in the doorway, one hand over her mouth. Damon hovered behind her, pale, useless. I got in, started the engine, and sat there for a long minute. My breath fogged the windshield. I didn't feel victory or relief, just a slow, heavy quiet. When I finally drove away, the snow thickened, turning the road into a blur of white and gray. Each mile between me and the Tide House felt lighter, cleaner. I didn't know what would come next. Divorce papers, gossip, maybe a kind of peace I hadn't felt in months. But as I drove through the storm, the flakes melting on my sleeves like tiny blessings, I felt something close to truth. Not happiness, not forgiveness, just the steady calm of a man who finally stopped pretending. By Monday morning, the world had turned sharp again. The storm passed, leaving everything brittle and clean. Sabrina hadn't come home Sunday night. I didn't text her, didn't call. I didn't need to. The video on my phone said enough. I went to the shop early, the way I always did when I needed to think. The smell of varnish and cedar was steady, something honest, something that didn't lie back. I set the phone on the workbench, pressed play, and watched the 10-second clip again. Her face, Damon's silence, the space between them that used to belong to me. It didn't hurt this time. It clarified. I opened my laptop and started typing. Email 1. To the museum's HR department, subject line. Ethical misconduct and misuse of company resources. I didn't write from anger. I wrote like a craftsman, precise, measured. Dates, timestamps, screenshots. Mentions of the Tide House board retreat. Attached the proof. Email 2. To Sabrina. Subject, 48 hours. Body. You have 48 hours to tell the truth. After that, my files speak louder than you can. I didn't reread either message before sending. I just clicked send and exhaled. That afternoon, I heard from Marisol. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. You did what you had to, she said quietly. Don't let guilt rewrite it. By Tuesday evening, the ripples had already started. The museum board called an urgent internal meeting. Sabrina's assistant posted vague stories online about restructuring. I stayed away from social media, from gossip, from anything that sounded like satisfaction. When Sabrina finally came home that night, she looked smaller somehow. Her eyes were red, makeup gone. She dropped her keys on the table and just stood there. "They know," she said. I nodded. "I know. You sent it." "Yes." She pressed her palms against her forehead, breathing through her teeth. "You could have come to me, Evan. We could have fixed this." "No," I said. "You can't fix rot by painting over it." She sank into the chair, staring at nothing. "You ruined everything." "No," I said calmly. "You did. I just stopped helping you hide it." Her eyes glistened. "I was lonely. You were always somewhere else. Your shop, your work, your silence." I looked at her, really looked at her. "So you found noise instead." She swallowed hard. "It wasn't supposed to mean anything. It just happened." "Things don't just happen, Sabrina. You open a door or you don't." She stood up fast, angry now. "You're so calm about all this. It's terrifying." "I've been angry for months," I said. "Now I'm done." She crossed her arms, trembling. "What are you going to do?" "I already did it." By Wednesday morning, word had spread through the art district. A friend from the Harbor Cafe texted me. "Heard about the scandal. You okay?" I didn't answer. I just worked. By Thursday, both Sabrina and Damon were on administrative leave pending investigation. The museum released a bland public statement about internal policy reviews. I read it twice, then closed my laptop. There was no satisfaction in it, just the faint sound of balance being restored. That night, I poured myself a drink in the workshop. Outside, the river ice had started to crack, small pops echoing across the dark. I stood there, staring at the half-built canoe. Its frame was strong, patient, waiting for finish. Sabrina had texted once. "I'm sorry. You don't have to hate me." I typed and deleted a dozen replies before settling on 2 words. "I don't." It was true. I didn't hate her. Hatred takes energy, and I'd already spent all mine. I saved the message, then deleted her contact. The number stayed in my head anyway. The night was quiet, except for the wind and the faint creak of wood expanding in the cold. I looked around my shop at the shelves lined with tools that never lied, and thought about what came next. I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted space. I wanted the sound of my own thoughts to stop echoing off someone else's mistakes. The camera in the vent had done its job. I'd proved what needed proving. Tomorrow, I'd take it down. For now, I raised my glass toward the canoe, toward the ghosts in the room, and whispered to no one, "Here's to the truth." Then I drank, and for the first time in months, it didn't burn. It was Friday when she came to the workshop. I heard the door open before I saw her, slow, hesitant, like she was stepping into a place that didn't belong to her anymore. Sabrina stood by the doorway, wearing my old gray coat. Her hair was tied back, eyes rimmed red. She looked smaller in the cold light that fell across the sawdust floor. "You could have come to me," she said softly. I didn't stop sanding. "You could have come to me first." She took a step forward. "You think I wanted it to happen that way? You think I planned it? I think you stopped caring if it did." Her voice cracked. "I made a mistake." I finally set the sandpaper down, brushing my hands off on my jeans. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or leaving the stove on. You built this one piece by piece." She exhaled, shaking her head. "You don't understand." "Then explain it." She looked around the shop at the walls lined with tools, at the canoe taking shape on the sawhorses. "You live here," she said. "You disappear into your work." I'd talk, and it was like you couldn't hear me unless I spoke in the language of wood and glue. "That's the thing, Sabrina," I said quietly. "I was listening. You just stopped saying anything worth hearing." Her eyes filled again. "I was lonely." "So was I said. The words hung between us like dust caught in a sunbeam, visible, weightless, inescapable. She took another step closer. "Do you hate me?" "No." She searched my face. "Then what do you feel?" I thought about it for a moment. "Nothing that changes anything." She flinched a little, like I'd hit her. "I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did," I said simply. "And you can't take it back. You can only live with it." Her hands twisted together. I lost my job. Damon did too. You won. Are you happy? I looked at her. This woman I'd built a life around, shared a bed with planned a future beside, and felt the strangest kind of clarity. It wasn't a game, I said. There was no winning. Just the truth catching up. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. You always have to be so calm. I'm calm because I already burned, I said. There's nothing left to catch fire. She turned away, pacing toward the canoe. Her fingers traced the edge of the unfinished hull. It's beautiful, she whispered. You always make things that last. I leaned against the workbench, watching her. You can't fix rot by painting over it, I said quietly. Sometimes you just have to rebuild. She turned to me, eyes glistening. Do you think we could ever? No. She nodded once, lips pressed tight. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she stepped closer, close enough for me to smell her perfume. A faint, bittersweet mix of jasmine and varnish. I still love you, she said. I believe you, I said. But that's not the same as being sorry. Her breath trembled. She reached out, fingertips grazing my arm, a touch that used to mean everything. For a heartbeat, my body remembered the old reflex, to pull her close, to forgive her through skin instead of words. But then I saw the flash of the hotel room in my mind, her eyes going wide, his voice behind her, and the impulse died. I stepped back. Don't, I said gently. Please. Her hand fell away. I don't know what to do, she whispered. Learn to live with what you did, I said. That's a start. Tears spilled over, slow and quiet. You used to say I was the best thing that ever happened to you. I nodded. You were. That's what makes it hurt the way it does. For a while, the only sound was the hum of the heater and the river wind against the walls. She wiped her face, steadied her breathing, and turned for the door. At the threshold, she looked back. You'll forgive me someday. Maybe, I said. But it won't change what's true. She left. The door clicked shut, and the cold air rushed in behind her. I stood there for a long time, staring at the canoe. The hull gleamed under the workshop lights, half-finished, patient. I picked up the sandpaper again, running it along the curve until it was smooth enough to reflect the lamplight. Her scent lingered in the air, a memory already starting to fade. As I worked, I realized I wasn't trying to fix anything anymore. I was just finishing what I'd started. Outside, the river cracked and whispered, breaking apart the last of the ice. Inside, I felt something similar happening. Splinters giving way to open space. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like freedom trying to find a place to settle. By the time March settled in, the town had already digested the scandal and moved on. That's how small places work. Outrage one week, gossip the next, silence after. Still, some looks lingered. At the grocery store, at the cafe, I caught the occasional sympathetic nod, the polite half-smile of people who knew but didn't know what to say. I didn't need their pity. I had my workshop, my work, and the steady sound of the river thawing outside. The canoe was nearly done, 2 coats of varnish away from water. Then one night, I went to the brine bar down on Wharf Street. It wasn't planned. I just needed noise that wasn't my own thoughts. The place smelled like old wood and fried clams. The floor was sticky, the music low, the kind of place where strangers drink in peace. I took a seat near the window, ordered a beer, and let the chatter wash over me. Halfway through my drink, I heard a familiar voice. Loud, slurred. Damon. He was at the far end of the bar, hunched over a glass, shirt untucked, tie gone. He laughed too hard at something no one else found funny. When his eyes finally caught mine, his grin faltered. Well, he said, pushing off the stool, weaving slightly. If it isn't the moral compass himself. I stayed seated. Evening, Damon. He staggered closer. You proud of yourself? You ruined my career. My reputation. No, I said quietly. You did that all on your own. His smirk turned mean. You think you're some kind of hero? You're just a coward who hid behind emails. The bartender, a tall woman named Kay with arms like rope, watched from the end of the counter, polishing a glass. I kept my voice even. You should go home. Home. He laughed bitterly. You mean the cheap apartment across town? The one I had to move into after they kicked me out. He leaned closer, his breath heavy with whiskey. Sabrina's not the only one who's miserable, you know. I set my drink down. Walk away, Damon. He snorted. I saw her last week. She's falling apart. Still defending you, though. He's not cruel, she said. He's just disappointed. Something in my chest tightened. I wanted to look away, but I didn't. You shouldn't talk about her. He smiled thinly. Oh, come on. You think she didn't tell me everything? Every fight, every night you turned away? I know things about your marriage you probably forgot. He was baiting me, and for a second it almost worked. My hand curled around the glass. But I let the moment pass. No, I said calmly. You know fragments. She gave you what she wanted you to see. His eyes narrowed. You smug bastard. He swung, fast but sloppy. The punch whistled past my jaw, catching only air. Before I could even react, Kay grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the counter. Out, she said, her voice flat and final. Damon struggled, but she was stronger. She hauled him toward the door, muttering, Not in my bar, Romeo. He stumbled out into the cold, yelling something half-coherent about truth and art. The door shut behind him with a satisfying thud. Kay turned to me. You okay? I nodded. Yeah. She poured me a shot I hadn't ordered. On the house. You earned it. I raised the glass. Thanks. She shrugged. He's been in here 3 nights this week. Keeps picking fights with his reflection. When I left the bar, the wind cut hard off the water. I walked along the docks, listening to the tide slap against the pilings. The night smelled like salt and snowmelt. Somewhere behind me, laughter spilled from a bar again. I didn't look back. For the first time in months, the tightness in my chest eased. It wasn't joy, nothing that bright. Just a release, quiet and clean, like a knot finally coming undone. By the time I reached the truck, I realized I hadn't thought about Sabrina in hours. Not as a ghost, or a wound, or a question. Just as someone who used to exist in my life, and didn't anymore. When I got home, the house was dark. I walked through it slowly, touching the familiar things, the edge of the counter, the frame of the door, the work jacket hanging by the stairs. Everything looked the same, but it finally felt different. I sat on the porch, listening to the river. The ice was gone now, just the steady whisper of moving water. I thought about my father's words again. The river tells you everything if you stop fighting it. He was right. I didn't need answers anymore. I'd already heard what I needed to. The current carried it all away. By April, the snow was gone, replaced by gray puddles and the smell of wet earth. The river ran high and restless, carrying winter's leftovers downstream. I spent most of my days finishing the canoe. There was something almost sacred about it. The way each coat of varnish caught the light, the way the wood seemed to breathe once it was sealed. Sabrina and I finalized the divorce quietly. No arguments, no scenes, just paperwork sliding across a lawyer's desk. We divided things like civilized strangers. She got her car, the savings account, her art pieces. I kept the house, the workshop, and shared custody of Leo. The last time I saw her in person, we met outside the courthouse. She wore a dark green coat, her hair tied neatly back. I'm moving to Vermont, she said. A smaller nonprofit, they're offered me a position. I nodded. That sounds like you. It's not forever, she added, though we both knew it was. I just need space. You'll find it. We stood there a moment, the spring wind tugging at her scarf. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I know, I said. I just wish you'd been sorry sooner. She gave a faint, sad smile. Take care of yourself, Evan. You too. Then she was gone, walking toward her car, the green of her coat fading into the morning crowd. On a Saturday morning, Leo and I carried the canoe down to the lake. He was grinning the way only a kid can, wide, fearless, certain the world would hold him. It's beautiful, he said, running a hand along the polished side. Go on, I said. Help me push. We eased it into the water. It floated steady, balanced. The reflection of the sky rippled across its surface, pale silver with the promise of warmth. I climbed in first, then helped him settle opposite me. Ready? I asked. He nodded, eyes bright. Ready. I pushed off. The canoe glided forward, slicing the lake cleanly. The oars creaked, the water whispered, the rhythm simple and sure. Leo leaned over the edge, watching his reflection tremble with each stroke. After a while, he looked up. "Are we okay, Dad?" The question landed soft but deep. I paused, resting the oars. The boat rocked gently. "Yeah," I said. "We're not broken. We're just different." He nodded, seeming to understand more than a kid should. "Mom said she might visit in the summer." "That's good," I said. "She'll want to see what we built." He smiled proud. "It's strong." "It is." We drifted for a while, saying nothing. The breeze carried the faint sound of someone's radio from shore, a song about starting over. The kind of song that used to hurt. Now it just sounded true. When we paddled back, Leo jumped out first, his shoes sinking into the soft mud. I followed, dragging the canoe onto the bank. He helped me turn it over, water dripping from the sides like melted glass. "Can we go again tomorrow?" he asked. "Count on it." He ran ahead toward the truck, laughing, the sound cutting through the quiet morning like sunlight through clouds. I looked back at the lake, the canoe resting on the shore. For a second, I thought about Sabrina, not the betrayal, not the hotel, just the way she used to stand in this same light, smiling at something simple. I didn't hate the memory anymore. It was just there, part of a landscape, like driftwood on the bank. When we got home, Leo disappeared into his room, already talking to friends on his tablet. I walked through the house slowly, room by room, and finally stopped in the hallway where the vent camera had been. I knelt, unscrewed the cover, and pulled the tiny device free. It had done its job. It had told the truth. But it didn't belong here anymore. I set it on the counter, beside the folder labeled hull repairs, and then carried both out to the garage. I threw them in the metal bin, poured a bit of varnish over the top, and lit a match. The flame caught fast, curling paper into smoke. I watched until nothing was left but ash and the faint scent of burnt cedar. The house felt lighter afterward. The walls seemed to breathe again. That evening, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the river slide by. The sky was soft blue, fading to gold. Somewhere upstream, I could hear laughter, kids playing, someone's dog barking. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was waiting for anything. Not for answers, not for forgiveness, not even for peace. Just stillness. Wood, when bent the right way, doesn't break. It learns the curve. Maybe people do too.